Welcome back to the Deep End. We are diving into episode 11 of our series today. And if you follow the Moonshots crowd, or if you're a regular reader of Dr. Alex Wisner-Gross, we usually talk about the future as this thing approaching on the horizon.
Right. It's something we're moving toward.
Exactly. But today the horizon just crashed straight through the windshield. We're looking at a stack of news that essentially rewrites the operating system of our economy, our labor market, and I genuinely can't believe I'm about to say this out loud, our actual position in the Milky Way galaxy.
Yeah, it is dense. I think dense is an understatement here. It's basically a singularity packed into a single blog post.
Completely. And before we even start unpacking this, I have a very specific request for you listening. I want you to look at your screen right now. If you believe, or even if you just have that nagging suspicion that the government has been sitting on information about non-human intelligence, I want you to hit that thumbs up button. Just smash it.
They've been waiting for this one.
Oh, for sure. Because if today's deep dive is accurate, if the data we are about to go through holds water, you aren't just a conspiracy theorist anymore. You are about to be vindicated in a massive, historic way.
It certainly looks that way. The validation is coming straight from the top down now.
So we're diving into Dr. Alex Wisner-Gross's Substack, the Innermost Loop. The specific post is titled, Welcome to February 20, 2026, which is today's date.
Yep.
And the central premise is going to sound like science fiction until we actually look at the economic and the political indicators. The premise is basically this: the singularity isn't just changing the NASA DQ, it is apparently annoying the neighbors. And by neighbors, I mean extraterrestrials.
This is the ultimate convergence of the X-Files and the Wall Street Journal. And what makes this update so unique, so critical, is that it argues these aren't separate stories. The aliens, the AI, the economic collapse of human labor, they are all the exact same story.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We need to connect these dots for you. We need to figure out why a skyrocketing AI curve somehow causes a panicked government pivot on UFOs, and how that leads us directly into a reality where human labor is suddenly trading at 3 cents on the dollar. It's a wild ride, so let's just get into it.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start with the hook that probably made everyone's jaw drop this morning. The cosmic disclosure. We have the White House, we have former President Obama, and we have this sudden, frantic change of heart regarding what is flying around in our skies. What exactly is happening in Washington right now?
Well, this is a massive reversal of protocol. According to the source material, the White House has effectively scolded former President Obama. Now, usually, ex-presidents are treated with kid gloves, right?
Right, there's an unspoken respect there.
Exactly. But the issue here was that Obama apparently took information confirming that aliens are real out of the classified channels where it was supposed to stay.
Which is really just a polite way of saying he spilled the beans before the official press release was ready.
Pretty much.
But let's be real about this. Obama is usually the most disciplined guy in the room. He parses every single word. For him to leak something as massive as aliens are real, he must have felt that the secret wasn't going to be secret for much longer anyway.
That is the direct implication. And instead of burying his comments or issuing a blanket denial, the White House is pivoting right into this skid. They have directed the Secretary of War, and please note the usage of that very specific title.
Yeah, that's not subtle.
It's not. They've directed the Secretary of War and several other agencies to begin the immediate release of government files regarding extraterrestrial life, UAPs, and UFOs.
And just to be clear for everyone, this isn't a we'll get to it in 10 years kind of Freedom of Information Act dump where they black out 90% of the page.
No, not at all. There is a speech scheduled, a formal public address detailing alien life and spaceships, and it is set for a date just days before the State of the Union address.
That timing is incredibly aggressive. I mean, in politics, you usually bury this kind of weird news on a Friday afternoon before a long holiday weekend. You don't put it right before the biggest political speech of the year unless you want it to be the main focus of the State of the Union.
It suggests intense urgency. It implies they're trying to get ahead of a narrative that is about to break wide open whether they like it or not. And that brings us to the why. This is the part that connects it back to our usual beat, which is the technology sector. The source argues that this disclosure is being literally forced on us because of the AI curve.
This is the part that genuinely gave me chills. Break that down for me. Because on the surface, a better chatbot and a government admitting aliens exist seem completely unrelated. Why does a smarter GPU force disclosure?
Because it's not just a chatbot anymore. We are rapidly approaching superintelligence. The argument here, and it's a theory that has been circulating in high-level physics and technophilosophy circles for a while now, is that developing superintelligence is a high-risk event for the entire neighborhood.
And the neighborhood being the galaxy.
The galaxy, the local cluster, whatever non-human intelligence has access to Earth. If there is an intelligence watching us, monitoring us like a nature preserve or some primitive civilization, we have historically been very boring. We burn some coal, we fight some wars, we invent radio, nothing special.
Just monkeys with car keys.
Exactly. But the moment we start building an artificial superintelligence, we stop being a nature preserve. We start being a threat, or at least a serious concern.
So we're basically the kids who found the matches, and now we're building a fully functional nuclear reactor in the living room.
That is a very fair analogy. Think about it from their perspective. If you are an advanced civilization, you might ignore nuclear weapons because they mostly just kill the species that invents them. They are a local planetary problem.
Yeah.
But superintelligence, that is an expanding force. That can get off-planet quickly. That can replicate. It changes the fundamental balance of power in a way that biology never could.
So the theory is that our informational volume has spiked.
Precisely. For millions of years, Earth's informational complexity was relatively flat. Then we hit the Industrial Revolution, it ticked up. But in the last 36 months, with the explosion of compute, with the training of these trillion parameter models, Earth just lit up like a massive flare on a dark ocean. We are generating entropy and complexity at a rate that clearly signals a hard takeoff.
And the neighbors saw the flare.
They saw the flare, and the theory is that they are either making their presence known, intervening, or simply that our activity is so loud in the informational sense that our government can no longer pretend we are alone. We have tripped the silent alarm.
That's fascinating because it completely shifts the narrative from did they visit us to are they worried about us? It's almost humbling in a way. We thought we were the center of the universe, but really we're just the noisy tenants that the landlord finally had to come investigate.
And apparently even the staunchest skeptics are folding on this. The source specifically mentions Michael Shermer.
Yes, the publisher of Skeptic magazine. I mean, this is a man whose entire career, his entire identity is built on debunking this exact kind of thing. He is the professional doubter.
If he's folding, that's significant.
It's like the Pope converting to Buddhism.
Right. And he is preparing to concede a long bet, a $1,000 wager, to Avi Loeb. Avi Loeb has been the Harvard astronomer relentlessly championing the search for extraterrestrial technology, often facing a lot of ridicule from the academic community for it. For Shermer to look at the incoming data and say, okay, I think I'm going to lose this bet, tells you exactly how much the evidence has shifted inside these elite circles. The writing is clearly on the wall.
So we have the government panic releasing UFO files because our AI is getting too scary for the rest of the galaxy, which directly begs the question, how scary is the AI getting? Let's move to segment 2, the steepening compute stack, because the numbers here are frankly ridiculous.
The numbers coming out of Google's Gemini 3.1 Pro are staggering. We aren't seeing incremental gains anymore. We are seeing massive leaps.
We've got some benchmarks listed here. SOTA state-of-the-art score of 44.4% on humanities last exam. First of all, terrifying name for a test. Who names these things?
It is dramatic, but it's highly accurate. Humanities last exam is designed to be the hardest possible test of general reasoning. These are questions that are supposed to be entirely Google-proof. Getting 44.4% without using external tools, just relying entirely on the model's internal weights, is incredible. But I really want to focus on the GPQA Diamond score.
Tiny 4.3%. What exactly is GPQA Diamond? Because we throw around these acronyms all the time, like MMLU and math, but what does this one actually measure in the real world?
GPQA stands for Graduate Level Google Proof Q&A, and the Diamond subset is the absolute hardest tier of that benchmark. These aren't historical trivia questions. These are questions written by active PhDs in biology, physics, and chemistry, specifically designed so that other PhDs would struggle to answer them without sitting down with a pen, paper, and reference materials for at least 30 minutes.
So we aren't talking about, like, what is the capital of France. We're talking about synthesizing novel chemical compounds or predicting complex quantum states.
Exactly. We're talking about questions like, given this highly specific molecular structure and these precise reaction conditions, what is the most likely kinetic product versus the thermodynamic product? To get 94.3% on a test composed of those questions. That basically means if you walked into a room of 100 physics grad students, and this AI The AI is definitively smarter than 94 of them.
That is literally a super expert in your pocket. But the scary part isn't just the sheer intelligence, right? It's the price.
That is the real kicker here. Artificial analysis has officially ranked Gemini 3.1 Pro as the new intelligence index leader, not just because it's brilliant, but because the evaluations cost less than half of what it costs to run Claude Opus 4.6 or GPT 5.2.
This is Moore's law on absolute steroids. We are getting exponentially smarter models for half the price. This is a massive deflationary shock to intelligence itself.
It creates a real paradox. Usually, as something gets fundamentally better, it gets more expensive. Think of luxury cars, or prime real estate, or top-tier human consultants. But AI is doing the exact opposite. It is becoming exponentially better and exponentially cheaper at the same time.
And this blistering speed is destroying the job market for the people who built the tech job market to begin with. There's a quote here from OpenAI's Codex engineering lead that genuinely made me want to throw my laptop out the window.
Yes. He explicitly predicts that today's cutting-edge coding agents will look funny within 10 weeks.
10 weeks! I buy milk that lasts longer than that. If you are a senior software engineer and you're building a complex workflow around a tool today, you are being told by the creators of that tool that in 2.5 months, it will look like a stone axe.
It completely renders the traditional concept of learning a tool obsolete. You don't learn the tool anymore. You just state your problem in natural language. The capability is moving so fast that human cognitive adaptability simply cannot keep up. We are so used to technological cycles taking years. You learn Java, you build a career on it for a decade. Now an entire generation of technology lasts a single fiscal quarter.
So the code is writing itself, the machines are doing the thinking, and the humans are, we are finding entirely new, deeply weird ways to be useful. Have you seen this rent-a-human phenomenon?
The meat puppets.
I hate that term so much. It sounds like a bad sci-fi horror movie. But 500,000 people have signed up for this.
It is the exact inverse of what society expected.
Right.
We always thought AI would do the thinking and robotics would do the manual labor. The robots would fold the laundry and wash the dishes, and we humans would be freed up to write poetry and paint. But it turns out robotics is incredibly hard. Dealing with physical physics is hard, but pure reasoning, that's surprisingly easy for the machines now. So in many edge cases, AI is doing all the heavy cognitive lifting, but it still needs a physical interface. It needs hands. It needs biological eyes navigating the real world.
So walk me through a typical day in the life of a meat puppet. What are these 500,000 people actually doing?
Imagine an AI agent needs to verify the physical inventory in a massive warehouse in Ohio. It has the complete database, it has the routing logic, but it doesn't have a camera on wheels in that specific aisle. So it pings a human on the Rent-A-Human app. The human accepts the microgig. They put on a headset or, honestly, just hold up their smartphone camera. The AI verbally instructs them, walk forward 10 feet, turn left, look at the barcode on the third shelf. The human does it. The AI captures the image frame, processes the barcode, updates the cloud database, and automatically pays the human a few cents for their trouble.
So the human isn't thinking at all. The human is just actuating. We are literally the mouse and keyboard for the AI.
Exactly. It is the physical manifestation of the digital mind. We are becoming the fleshy peripherals for the supercomputer. The human provides the cheap mobility and the opposable thumbs. The AI provides the intent, the navigation, and the understanding.
That is a profoundly humbling, borderline dystopian thought. We are the remote-controlled cars for the superintelligence. But this explosion in intelligence, whether it's solving graduate physics or driving humans around warehouses, it requires power. Massive, unprecedented amounts of power. And money. Let's talk about the economic rewiring, because this is where the rubber meets the road. Or I guess, where the silicon meets the grid.
We are witnessing a fundamental historic shift in what actually constitutes value in the global economy.
You mentioned to me before we started that we might be seeing the birth of a new gold standard. But instead of gold bars sitting in a vault at Fort Knox, it's silicon sitting in a server rack.
Look closely at this deal with Crusoe and AMD. AMD is backstopping a $300 million loan to Crusoe. It's a huge amount of capital. But look at the collateral being used. They aren't putting up the factory, they aren't using the land, they aren't even using projected future cash flows. They're using the AI chips themselves as the collateral for the loan.
So if Crusoe defaults on this massive loan, the bank doesn't want the real estate, they want the GPUs.
Correct. This is the first known major example of GPUs being utilized as a hard financial instrument. It strongly implies that compute capacity is now universally recognized as a stable store of value. just like gold, like oil, like prime real estate. It is a hard asset because it produces the single most valuable commodity in the modern world: intelligence.
Which makes total logical sense. If those chips can generate near infinite intelligence, and that intelligence generates massive wealth, then the chips are quite literally money printing machines. And that shift in value is aggressively reshaping global trade. There was a stat in the source about Taiwan that completely blew my mind.
For the first time since 1992, U.S. imports from Taiwan have surpassed imports from China.
Whoa. That is a seismic geopolitical shift. I mean, for 30 solid years, China has been the undisputed factory of the world. Everything you touch says made in China.
It is entirely 100% driven by semiconductors. The dominant freight routes of the 21st century are physically shifting to follow the silicon. We are shipping plastic toys and textiles as the primary driver of economic value anymore. We are shipping brains. The entire geopolitical center of gravity is relocating to wherever the highest-end compute is being manufactured and packaged.
But those brains are incredibly hungry. They need electricity. And Amazon has just officially dethroned Walmart as the world's largest company by revenue.
And it certainly wasn't because they sold more paperback books or toothpaste. It is powered specifically by relentless data center growth. AWS Amazon Web Services is the absolute engine of this new economy. But here's the critical bottleneck. The grid cannot take it. We are hitting a hard physical wall.
We keep hearing this phrased as the grid is full. But what does that actually mean for the listener?
It means we have literally run out of capacity on the transmission lines to plug new things in without melting the wires or causing rolling blackouts. And it's not just about total capacity, it's about reliability. Solar and wind are fantastic technologies, but they are inherently variable. The sun doesn't always shine, the wind drops. Data centers require 99.999% uptime. You cannot be 3 weeks into training a trillion-parameter AI model and have the power dip for a microsecond because a cloud drifted over a solar farm. The entire training run would crash, costing tens of millions of dollars.
So what's the solution? Because big tech is not stopping. They aren't going to just shrug and say, oh, well, guess we can't build superintelligence this year.
They are building a shadow grid.
A shadow grid? That sounds so cyberpunk.
It sounds sinister, but it's purely pragmatic and very aggressive. The massive tech companies are realizing they simply cannot rely on the public utility grid anymore. It's too bogged down in permitting, it's too heavily regulated, and the infrastructure is 50 years old. So they are going off-grid entirely. They're building their own private power plants, and specifically, they're building natural gas plants.
So much for all those corporate pledges about hitting net zero emissions by 2030.
It's a massive tension right now. Look at the SoftBank deal highlighted in the deep dive. They are actively forming a consortium to build a $33 billion gas-fired plant right on the Ohio-Kentucky border. It's rated for 9.2 gigawatts.
9.2 gigawatts. To put that in perspective for you guys listening, the Hoover Dam generates about 2 gigawatts. So SoftBank is basically building 4.5 Hoover Dams powered by natural gas just to feed AI data centers.
Exactly. It'll be the single largest power plant in the United States, just for compute. This creates a really strange historical dynamic where the singular quest for digital ethereal superintelligence is temporarily forcing us to radically reindustrialize the physical world with fossil fuels. We are literally burning dead dinosaurs at an unprecedented scale to build a digital god.
That is a dark, poetic irony. But it's not all natural gas, right? The source also dives into fusion power.
Yes, there is a very strong green countercurrent. Type 1 Energy just submitted a formal licensing application for the Infinity One Stellarator down in Tennessee.
A stellarator, that's the super complex, twisty donut-shaped one, right? Not the normal smooth donut.
Right, it's distinct from the traditional tokamak design. The Stellarator is a nightmare to physically engineer, but it's theoretically much more stable once running. They are aggressively targeting a working fusion prototype by 2029.
2029? That is only 3 years away if they actually pull that off.
If they pull that off, the global energy constraint completely vanishes overnight. But until then, we are trapped in this desperate race between burning massive amounts of gas to build the supermind and hoping the supermind figures out how to give us clean fusion energy before we cook the planet. It's a literal race against our own environmental clock.
And meanwhile, you have places like Ethiopia that are just looking at this whole legacy mess and skipping it entirely. They banned fossil fuel vehicle imports completely in 2024.
Yes, it's a classic technological leapfrogging. Just like how many developing nations completely skipped laying copper landlines and went straight to building cellular networks, Ethiopia is explicitly skipping the gas station era. Their EV adoption surged from under 1% to nearly 6% in a flash. It perfectly illustrates that while the West is bogged down struggling with massive legacy infrastructure like fighting over that, SoftBank gas plant emerging economies can sometimes pivot infinitely faster simply because they don't have as much old stuff they need to dismantle first.
Speaking of pivoting, let's get to the part of this deep dive that is going to hit absolutely everyone right in the wallet. The 3-cent worker. This is segment 4, and frankly, this is the part that keeps me staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m.
This is the brutal, unavoidable math of the new economy.
The core headline here is that businesses are aggressively replacing their freelancers, the people making a living on Upwork, on Fiverr, with AI agents. But it's the specific rate of replacement that matters. They are trading $1 of human labor for 3 cents of AI compute spending.
That is a 97% cost reduction. In classical economics, you almost never see an efficiency jump of that extreme magnitude. Usually, supply chains fight tooth and nail for a 5 or 10% margin improvement. A 97% discount is not market competition. It is absolute substitution.
Let's put this in very real terms for the listener. If you are a graphic designer or a copywriter or a junior coder and you charge $50 an hour, and an AI can do your exact task for pennies in seconds, you cannot lower your rate enough to compete with that. You cannot pay rent on 3 cents an hour. You can't buy groceries.
You simply cannot. And that is exactly why we are seeing such explosive, violent financial growth in the specific companies providing this labor substitution. Epoch AI projects that Anthropic is growing at 10x per year. 10 times. They actively predict Anthropic might surpass OpenAI's total revenue by mid-2026.
Which is insane because OpenAI is the juggernaut. But NVIDIA is finalizing another $30 billion investment into OpenAI as we speak. It's an all-out arms race to provide the cheapest, smartest, infinite labor pool in human history. But this creates a massive identity crisis for us. If we aren't the workers anymore, what actually are we?
We're seeing legacy institutions scrambling to define exactly that. Look at BAFTA, the British Academy of Film and Television Arts. They just formally introduced human achievement as a core guiding principle for their film awards.
Human achievement. It sounds like a participation trophy just for being carbon-based. Congratulations, you have DNA. Here's a statue.
In a way, it absolutely is. But it's historically significant. It is the first major cinematic institution to formally, legally distinguish between carbon-based human creativity and silicon-based generation. They are drawing a hard line in the cultural sand. They are basically saying this specific award is for the biological struggle, the effort, the human limitation.
It's so interesting. The core value shifts away from the final result and moves entirely to the process. We don't care that the AI prompted a visually perfect movie in 5 minutes. We care that a human suffered and bled for 2 years to make an imperfect one.
Precisely. Because scarcity is what creates value. If absolute perfection is cheap and infinite, then imperfections, specifically human imperfection, becomes the new luxury good. In the future, we might pay a massive premium for a wooden table made by human hands specifically because it's slightly wobbly, simply to visually prove it wasn't manufactured by a precise machine.
But not everyone can just magically pivot to being a luxury human performance artist. The source material compares the US and European labor markets here, and it really looks like Europe is in deep, deep trouble.
This is the labor rigidity problem playing out in real time. In Spain, for example, corporate restructuring, meaning laying off human workers to pivot to this new 3-cent AI model, costs a company about 62 months of salary per employee in severance and penalties. That is over 5 years of pay just to let someone go.
Wait, if I'm a business owner and I need to fire someone in Spain to survive this transition, I have to pay them for 5 solid years.
Effectively, yes, in certain mandated restructuring scenarios. Now compare that to the U.S. In the U.S., the average cost burden is about 7 months.
So in Europe, companies are basically legally married to their workforce. In the US, they're just casually dating.
Exactly. Now, in a slow, stable world, the European model is beautiful. It heavily protects workers. It's deeply humane. But in a world that completely changes its technological paradigm every 10 weeks, like those coding agents we talked about, that humane rigidity is fatal. If you are a Spanish CEO and you have 500 employees doing a cognitive job that AI can suddenly do for virtually free, you cannot pivot. You are anchored to the ocean floor by your massive payroll obligations. Your company just goes bankrupt.
Whereas in the US?
In the U.S., it is brutal, hyper-capitalist fluid dynamics. You fire the 500 human thinkers on Friday, you hire 50 meat puppets for physical tasks, and you purchase $1 million in cloud compute on Monday. It causes massive, terrible social trauma for those workers. We absolutely cannot understate that human cost, but purely economically. It means the U.S. economy updates its core operating system instantly, while Europe is still slowly trying to boot up Windows 95 because they literally can't afford the cost of rebooting.
It's a painful fluidity. We are watching the U.S. economy morphing in real time while Europe is trapped in regulatory amber. And amidst all this future shock and job loss, the source highlights this really weird, fascinating initiative called research revival.
I actually love this piece of news. It's a rare moment of humility in tech. It's a formal acknowledgement that in our rush forward, we might have missed something massive. They're actively offering grants to recover buried scientific hypotheses. They're unleashing AI to dig through untranslated Soviet archives, looking at forgotten Mao-era anti-malarial research.
It's like extreme dumpster diving through scientific history, but why? Why look backward when we just established we have the superbrain of the future?
Because human science is heavily path-dependent. We went down certain specific research roads because of funding fads or political pressure, or just because one scientist was more charismatic than another. We left millions of viable ideas on the table. Maybe a critical cure was completely ignored because it came from the wrong country during the Cold War, or because the scientist wasn't famous enough to get published in Nature. Now that we have AI agents that can read, translate, and analyze millions of old, dusty papers in seconds, we can go back and exhaustively check every single road not taken.
That's incredible. Maybe the actual cure for a specific cancer was scribbled in a Soviet lab notebook in 1974, and nobody ever bothered to translate it into English.
Exactly. It's mining the forgotten past to directly feed the future. It turns all of human history into a searchable, actionable data set.
Okay, we have covered aliens, we have covered the brutal 3-cent economy, we've covered the shadow energy grid. Now we need to talk about 3D printed guns and baby chickens.
A completely natural pairing for this deep dive.
Segment 5, Biology, 3D guns, and the circle of mines. Let's start with the guns. California is apparently trying to heavily regulate 3D printers now.
Right. The state legislature introduced a bill requiring all 3D printers sold in the state to be DOJ certified with built-in firearm blocking technology.
So the printer software has to somehow know it's printing a gun component and actively refuse to do it. Like, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't print that trigger housing.
Which, from a software engineering perspective, is technically incredibly difficult. Shapes are just geometry. A tube is a tube until it's a barrel. But the core significance here isn't whether the law actually works. Honestly, it probably won't. The significance is that the massive regulatory apparatus is finally waking up to the threat of decentralized manufacturing. Digital information is already decentralized. You can securely download a banned file anywhere on Earth. Now, the manufacturing of physical objects is becoming decentralized. Atoms are officially becoming as ungovernable as bits.
You can shut down the gun store, but you cannot ban the printer sitting in some guy's garage. It's the exact same theme as the AI models. The real power is rapidly moving to the absolute edge of the network. The centralized government is definitively losing its monopoly on both force and physical production.
And that terrifying loss of control over the physical world perfectly mirrors what we are simultaneously finding out about the mental world. And this directly brings us to the chickens.
Yes, the chickens. Please explain the Bouba-Kiki effect to me, because I feel like this is going to be the specific thing that finally breaks my brain today.
It's a very famous, classic linguistic experiment. You show a human subject two abstract visual shapes. One is very round and curvy, like a cartoon cloud. The other is extremely spiky and jagged, like a broken shard of glass. Then you verbally say two nonsense words to them, Bouba and Kiki, and you ask the human which shape is which.
And almost every single person says the round, bubbly one is Bouba because your mouth literally makes a round shape when you say it, and the spiky one is Kiki because the consonants sound sharp and abrupt.
Right. It's called cross-modal abstraction. We naturally map the physical roundness of the sound to the visual roundness of the shape. For decades, we arrogantly thought this was a distinctly high-level human linguistic trait, a clear sign of our highly advanced brain, our unique ability to use complex metaphor across different sensory inputs. But they just formally tested it on newborn chickens.
And the baby chickens knew.
The chickens exhibited the exact same statistical effect. They naturally associate the round visual shapes with the round auditory sounds and the spiky shapes with the spiky sounds.
So a baby chicken, literally fresh out of the egg with a brain the size of a pea, has the exact same baseline synesthesia and abstract mapping as a human poet.
Yes. And this perfectly connects to a brilliant comment left on the Substack post by a user named Michael S., who referenced the groundbreaking work of biologist Michael Levin. Levin is a developmental biologist who convincingly argues that intelligence isn't just centralized in the brain, it's in the individual cells, it's in the bioelectrical networks of the entire body communicating with itself.
So the grand insight here is we aren't actually that special.
The insight is that the deep capacity for abstraction, for intelligently connecting disparate dots, was never operating solely at our level to begin with. It was always deeply embedded down in the biological substrate. It's a fundamental physical property of biological organization itself. It's not about having high-level language. It's literally about how electricity naturally moves through meat.
We seriously thought we were the undisputed kings of the castle because we could write clever poetry about spiky shapes. Turns out, the chicken gets the joke too.
We were never, ever qualified to draw the circle deciding which minds matter and which don't. We just arrogantly drew the circle tightly around ourselves and boldly declared intelligence is here and nowhere else. But now, that circle is entirely shattering.
And that brings us perfectly full circle back to the intro of this deep dive.
It really does. Think about the massive scope of what we've covered. We are suddenly seeing undeniable intelligence emerging in the server rack with Gemini 3.1 and the silicon intelligence. We are seeing complex abstract intelligence in the egg with the chick that's substrate intelligence. And we're seeing intelligence hovering in orbit with the sudden government disclosure of non-human entities.
The human monopoly is officially over. We are absolutely no longer the only game in town. We are suddenly surrounded by minds, silicon minds, alien minds, biological minds we previously ignored.
And that is simultaneously a deeply terrifying and a profoundly liberating realization. We are collectively waking up in a very crowded room.
It is the ultimate welcome to the universe moment. We aren't the landlord anymore. We're just one of the noisy tenants.
And the rent is finally due.
Wow. Okay, let's just take a breath and unpack this for a second. We have thrown a massive amount of reality-breaking information at you, the listener. We've got the U.S. government terrified of aliens because our AI is ringing the galactic doorbell. We've got an incoming economy where your human labor is objectively worth 3 cents. We've got shadow data centers eating the national power grid and baby chickens that intimately understand metaphor.
It is a perfect high-definition picture of a civilization-scale phase transition. It's exactly like watching water turning to steam. The old structural rules, legacy economics, human labor value, even our definition of biology are boiling away in real time. And we are frantically trying to figure out the new physics of the steam before it scalds us.
And somewhere inside that steam, we have to find our new place. Which brings me directly to the question of the day, because we really want to hear from you on this one.
This is definitely the big one to debate.
Based on absolutely everything we just discussed, but specifically focusing on the harsh news that businesses are aggressively trading $1 of human labor for 3 cents of AI labor. Where does this road actually end for us?
It is the ultimate fork in the road for our species.
Exactly. Are we rapidly heading toward a world of mass abundance where energy is basically free via fusion, intelligence is practically infinite, and we are finally liberated to pursue purely human achievement? Or are we rocketing toward mass obsolescence, where we are just economically and fundamentally redundant?
The ultimate 3-cent worker dilemma.
So here is the this or that challenge for the comments section. Mass abundance or mass obsolescence? Which specific way does the global scale tip? Tell us exactly why you think so down in the comments. I want to see a rigorous debate down there.
I personally suspect the final answer lies somewhere in the very messy, chaotic middle, but I am incredibly eager to read the arguments people make.
Before we sign off, I need to introduce the sound that is going to play us out today. We are perfectly keeping with the theme of intelligence emerging from the substrate.
This is a really special track.
It truly is. This is by the absolute best band in the universe, at least according to us, Rainbow. They are an incredible 6-female android Cambodian house band.
Extremely fitting for today's topic.
Right. The song is called Karshlobanching, and it is actually performed entirely live using the Abacus platform.
The Abacus platform is a fascinating ecosystem. Human performance in the age of AI is the 4B4KU5 core theme. It's heavily focused on reclaiming your pure humanity from the algorithm, even while you're actively using the algorithm to create.
It's exactly that vital blend we talked about earlier with the BAFTA awards, using the powerful tool without becoming the tool yourself. I'll include a lot more information on today's specific song and a deep link on Abacus in the video description. You definitely need to check it out. It's totally mind-bending stuff.
It has been an absolute pleasure going through this one, as always.
the pleasure was entirely mine. And to you, the learner, the listener, the potentially obsolescent but hopefully abundant human, subscribe and turn on notifications by clicking the bell. No need to fear missing out on any upcoming episodes.
Was love Yummy landed, Yummy landed, Dun 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 yeah. Sonei te tuyubi, Pindate mapadino be. Level kissing aminara pana, Pindate mataminaja. Chewere shikamte do, Pindate mapadino be. Pakuida